All right, we're live. We're recording.
Steve, how'd you fix it?
Sweet.
So I fixed it by switching to Internet Explorer. Good old-fashioned Microsoft Internet Explorer.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick.
I'm Steve. I'm the bassist.
And welcome to the Lipstick panel. Today on the Lipstick panel, we are talking about the Ace Frehley 1978 solo album, what many Kiss fans consider to be the best of the 4 solo albums. But we don't have Kiss fans on this panel. We have non-Kiss fans. Well, I'm a Kiss fan. Steve has been begrudgingly listening to Kiss. And our guest, Matt Devonshire, from Titans in Time, isn't necessarily a Kiss fan either, but he's here to talk about the Ace Frehley 78 solo album. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, people.
Henceforth, throughout this episode, I will refer to him as Devo, because that's what I've known him as my entire life. This is going to be a fun episode, because this is 3 bassists talking about a lead guitar player's album.
He needs to play everything at least 2 octaves lower.
Right. Actually, he does play bass on a lot of this album.
So wait, he played bass on his own album. Gene Simmons did not.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
I couldn't tell a difference, so good for him.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 tracks he didn't play bass on, but otherwise he played bass on the rest. And I guess when he was interviewed about it, they were like, was it hard to switch over to bass? He's like, no.
Bass is the heart and soul of the band, you guys. Why does everyone make fun of it? Right, because we're lazy.
Alright, so at the beginning of the episodes, we typically go around the panel and talk about our history with the album. I'll go ahead and go first. I bought this album in high school, being a big Kiss fan. Liked it a lot, thought it was a really good album. I understand why Kiss fans like it the most out of the 4 solo albums, because it's the one that sounds most like a Kiss album, at least sonically. Paul's album, they say the songwriting sounds more like Kiss, but sonically this one sounds the most like a Kiss album of that era. It's got a bunch of really good songs, well done. A lot of people weren't expecting much from Ace because he was sort of the quiet one of the band, but he came out of the gate swinging with what a lot of people consider to be a classic album. Of the 4 albums, this one had the only hit of the bunch. This one was the best regarded by critics and fans. So it's generally considered to be a pretty good rock album, and I enjoyed it a lot. I was always really impressed on the mastering job on this particular album out of all the ones in the catalog. And so I've got my buddy Joe Palmazzo to thank for that. He did a really good job on the remaster of this one, in my opinion. Devo, you went to high school with me, and you weren't listening to this album then. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll first tell you about my history with the album, which is really funny because the only time I had heard it was I think you were driving me somewhere, probably to pick up food or something. And
With Greg,
was
it was
just
food
in the
or
car?
rock.
And you're like, yeah. And, in between watching Kiss Saves Christmas or something like that, you're like, all right, enough of Kiss. I'll just play you someone different. And not really that different. Sounds like Kiss to me.
I think I was just trying. I think that might have been more of a troll than anything else.
Oh, of course. Of course. So that was probably the only time I've ever heard this album until I was asked to be on this podcast. So then I listened to it just sitting at my desk a few days ago, and then I listened in the car today. So I've listened to it 3 times. And it's really funny because what I decided about this album was it wasn't so great just around on my desk and just sitting there listening to this album intensely, but cruising around rural Ohio, I was able to actually rock out to it.
This is a great driving album.
It is. It really is.
It's a great driving through rural Ohio album.
Of course. And just, I don't know, it just sounded a lot better through my car speakers too. So those are my 3 experiences with the album. And I guess the songs, some songs, I love them as much as I possibly can for music like this. And then some I thought were kind of complete failures, and they probably were like, well, we need to not be an EP, so let's just throw in whatever. And on the bottom of my ranking are those songs.
So, Steve, how did you feel about this one?
So, as with all Kiss albums up through 1978, I've listened to them exactly one time. This one, also while sitting at my desk, but also in quick succession with 2 other Kiss solo albums. This was actually the 3rd one that I listened to on that day, so, you know, I was getting towards noon, and I was pretty done with Kiss. My mood had improved, though. I was over getting a flat tire. I'm just telling a long, rambling, and boring autobiography, but that's how I saved Christmas, so... Yeah.
You didn't save Christmas. Kiss did.
That's how I saved Kissmas from Kiss. With swords.
General thoughts on the album, Steve?
I was unimpressed. Yeah, musically it sounded more like the most like a Kiss album of the 4 solo albums. But Ace isn't a great vocalist. He's got a really limited range, and I think that really worked against this as an album. Well, if it's the sort of thing where he's doing 1 or 2 songs on an album amidst the other better vocalists in the band, then I think it works and it adds variety. But in this context, where it's just 9 songs in a row or 8 songs in a row of his mediocre range,
so remember how angry the Smashing Pumpkins fans got about Gish?
Yeah.
That's probably how Kiss fans will feel about this episode.
I'm sorry, Kiss fans, but you're wrong.
Ha.
I mean, I understand this not being appealing if you're a more melodic guy, and which is usually where I end up. Ace's vocal styling is very quirky and sort of heavy on the Ace personality. So he goes more for personality than for technique, very similar to a punk vocalist. So in that sense, it's sort of a punk rock vocal styling in the Kiss hard rock setting. And I personally think it works. And I actually think his vocals are great across this album. But, take that as you may. But let's go ahead and get into this ranking, gentlemen. How many songs is on this album, Steve?
9.
9? Okay. So the 9th best song on this album, as voted by the panel, Wiped Out.
You guys thought the same thing?
Not necessarily. That's just how math ended up.
Okay.
Greg thought the same thing.
No, I thought it was the second least best song on the album. So there's sort of different tiers of this album for me. And there's the A+ material, and then this is more like low B, high C material, and that's where Wiped Out is, where I don't think it's bad, and this is definitely quirky Ace with very silly music and lyrics during the verses, and this is just I Got Messed Up at a Party, the song. But I really like the contrast between the verses where it's like, I'm having a good time, everything's light and happy, and then the verses are like the crashing hangover, or I fell down at the party and the world is spinning, that kind of thing. So I like how it shows sort of the dark and light sides of partying too much. It's a fun song, and captures what he was going through at the time, which is, I am drinking a lot, I'm smoking a lot of weed, and I'm having lots of groupie sex. And I'm enjoying it, but I also recognize this is potentially dangerous.
Party responsibly, kids.
Times are tough. For me, it's very last, and the reason was I couldn't even get past the musicality of it. The guitars, the bass, the drums, they don't feel like they sync up, like, at all. If I he probably did all the instrumentation on this song, is my guess.
That's actually not the case. This is a pro bassist on this track, from the guy from David Letterman's band, and the drummer on the entire album was Letterman's drummer. So this is one of the ones where he hired the pro bassist for this track.
Letterman's drummer played that intro?
Yeah.
Why? Why is it so bad?
It's not meant to be the exact same thing as Wiped Out. It's meant to be an homage and tip of the hat to it. It's not meant to be...
It's a bad homage. Like, I get what they were going for, that it's like, it's kind of a take on Wipeout, but like, it's a really bad take on it.
I was actually really surprised and excited when I heard the intro, and then it transitioned into high school band quality or less of just instrumentation. I'm really surprised that he has other people on the song, especially professionals. But yeah, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was the recording or something, or maybe it's just my ear. But
maybe everybody was like method recording it, and everybody was drunk.
That's very possible that they were partying while they were recording a song about partying.
That's fair. So the thing with Ace in his songwriting, he sort of has two styles, where it's either very direct, straightforward, and kick-ass, or quirky, weird, and awkward. And this definitely falls into the latter category. Like there's the rhythm switch-ups between the verses and chorus are very, very jarring. And I think the band pulled it off pretty well, personally. But like I said, I do think it's one of the weaker songs on the album.
I definitely notice different writing styles in this album as well. I guess I'm a guy who gravitates towards the heavy-hitting guitar riff-based songs. This is just kind of weird. Weird enough. I take that back, because I really like weird music. Just
This is weird music that you don't like.
Exactly.
Like if you've locked into Ace's personality and you like the Ace persona and you're like, oh, I get what he's doing here, then you like it. Like, this is very much an album for people who like his persona. Like, before this, he had only sung lead vocals on 2 Kiss songs, so this is him really coming out into his own as a songwriter and performer. So he threw a lot of different stuff at the wall, and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. I personally think it all succeeds to varying degrees, but this one succeeds slightly less.
Succeeds less.
I was just going to say, because you were talking and kind of disagreeing on his vocal performance, I would put it middle of the road. I actually think it's not bad. I do realize he had a limited range, like you said, Steve. However, as someone who's not normally a vocalist, it's really hard to step into that role, and making that transition, I think it was pretty decent.
I mean, not bad for a first go-around where you're the only lead vocalist on an album. And I think, to his credit, he doesn't go outside his range. He doesn't write outside the range. He writes within his range with what he can sing.
Oh, yeah, that's like my biggest pet peeve, when everyone thinks they're Mariah Carey. And it's like, no, you have like 2-octave range, probably not even, but they still go for it.
And, that's fair enough. It's a lesson that I should take from this album. I have a little bit more of a limited range myself, and I sometimes write outside of my range, and sometimes I make it work, and sometimes I really don't make it work. So I'm going to give Ace credit. He knew to write for his voice and did a good job with it.
I'm just waiting for that day, Greg, when you come into the studio and you're like, today is the day I discover my whistle register. I'm Mariah.
Do it, Greg.
Do it, right in the whistle register.
Lipstick 3. Oh, also, shout out to Devo for playing bass on what is arguably the most popular Lipstick track, The Flash. Forgot to mention that.
I don't think there's much argument there. That is 100% our best performance song.
Yeah.
And by our, I mean your, because I'm not on it.
Well, whatever. You played it live.
That's not the version people like.
That's fair.
At least not Brazilians.
It's all Devo's bass playing that saved that song.
I wouldn't say saved that song. It was fun to record. How long is that song again?
7
Like
minutes and
7, 8
45.
minutes?
Yeah, it's like 8 minutes.
Yeah. That was fun. And then it was also fun again. How many years have passed before I got to play it live?
That was like 5. That was like
No.
6, 7 years.
I
Because
want to say we recorded that in 2009,
I think it was 2010 or
2010?
2011.
and I got to play it in end of 2017.
You know, better late than never, right?
That both were fun times. Come back to Cleveland sometime. That was a good time.
Oh man, no pressure. I'll make it back up there.
Presumably
Presumably.
you'll go back and visit your family sometime.
Yeah, you know, I'm really.
Oh, family.
I'm really going there for Devo and Shark Seafood and Deli.
That's
That's why I'm going there.
You're probably disowned for saying mean things about Chief Wahoo.
Right. Anyway, moving right along, next up on the list is Ozone. This is a song about getting high.
Oh, because the ozone layer is so high.
That's
or is
how-
it because he's huffing ozone?
Probably both. I'm so high, I'm up in the ozone layer.
I went to space! Then huffed space!
I mean, this is a ridiculous song. I'm the kind of guy who likes getting high. I can see why the stoner section of the Kiss fan base gravitated towards this instead of Gene Straight Edge Simmons. So it's all right. Bless
Excuse
you.
me.
I actually had this high on my list just because it's a good guitar song. It's a good riff.
I mean, I think I ranked it. I think higher. Yeah, I ranked it higher than Steve did. So
Yeah, you
Steve
did.
was the one who really didn't like this one.
Yep. This felt like one of those songs where it's just like a guitarist noodling around and showing off how fast he can play and how many notes he can play to no real musical effect.
Oh, I dislike when that happens as well. I guess I'm around too many guitarists though, and
You're just
totally
numb to it. You don't even notice anymore.
I'm completely numb to it. We are living in a guitar player's world.
Also, I hadn't caught that lyric, I'm the kind of guy who's into getting high, which is definitely stolen from the Dictators.
Was the Dictators previous to this?
Yeah, it was like 75.
All right.
Oh.
Although, really,
So
is
this
it
song is a Man of War cover, meaning let's move it up about 5 spots.
so? Here's the question: is anyone really surprised that Ace Frehley might have come up with that lyric independently? I'm the kind of guy who likes getting high. He's like, guys, this is the best lyric I've ever come up with, man. Like, this song was definitely written while stoned.
Well, a lot of stuff I think also happens where you don't realize you stole it. You don't.
Yeah.
You hear it somewhere, and then time passes, or
Cough,
you do a
staring
lot
at
of
heaven.
drugs, or whatever. And then he's just like, "This is the greatest idea," and now, however many years later, you caught him.
I gotcha.
All right, so next up on the list, transitioning from Ozone, I thought this song got ranked way too low, but here it is. Rip It Out. Third from the bottom.
That's where I put it.
I put it second from the bottom.
Do you guys
Not
just
good.
do you guys just not like to rock?
I like to rock.
This song rocks. This is just pure adrenaline, punch you in the face, knock out some teeth, rock and roll.
I guess we have to agree to disagree on how to rock.
Look, I am a rock expert. I have written many songs with rock in the title.
That's true. I've played them.
But like this song, it's high energy, great opener, awesome solo, great drum fills, aggressive vocal, and lyrically it's like it works for me too. So like, oh, this girl broke my heart and I'm pissed off about it. There's just so much energy to this track. I think it's just a kick-ass great album opener. That said, out of every song on this album, this is the one that sounds most like a Kiss song. It sounds like a good Kiss song, but it really sounds like a Kiss song. So if you're not into Kiss, you hear this like, oh, this is a Kiss song.
So my thought when this came up was like, okay, this sounds like a Kiss song. I'm told this is the most Kiss sounding of these albums, so that's what I'm in for. And then he started singing, and it was like, oh, he's picking those notes because those are the only ones he can hit, aren't they? Oh dear. And, then had to buckle in for that.
Nah, this is pure adrenaline, balls to the wall, kick-ass rock and roll. I don't have anything bad to say about this one. Like, a lot of the Kiss songs, when we've discussed in other episodes, say, okay, that one's problematic for this reason. Like, okay, I can see why you think that sucks. I know this is just awesome.
I'm gonna say this would be one that would just be better if Paul had sung it.
I mean, in fairness, a lot of Kiss songs would be better if Paul sang them. Let's be honest.
I agree.
But as it stands, I still think it's a really cool song.
Yeah, all I can say is I wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
It was towards the bottom of my list.
Well, we've got coming up next. So these three songs were Ozone, Rip It Out, and this next song were all tied. But the way it works on this show, whichever one gets the more low votes is the loser in that category. Or no, sorry, the third place winner. So, but next up on the list in this three-way tie is Snowblind. So I think. Steve, did you rank this one the highest, or did Devo rank this? No, Devo,
I
you
ranked this
ranked
one
this the
second from
highest.
the bottom.
Oh, I had this one fourth.
Yeah, so you clearly liked Snowblind. Why don't you go first on this one?
It just had a lot of energy. Like I said, when I was enjoying this album, I was driving, and it was just turned out to be a good, like, rock drive through the middle of nowhere, Ohio song to jam out to. It's kind of more on the heavier side, and those were the songs that I gravitated towards on this album, and it just hit harder than most of the other ones. So that's why it's high for me.
And Steve, the other side of the coin.
This was a fairly generic Kiss-sounding rock kind of song that was as the same complaint as before, is that this whole album is really held back by Ace not being a good enough vocalist to support it. The two major faults with this album are Ace not being a good enough vocalist to support it, and there's a couple of times where he's being a real guitarist about things.
See, I'm so impressed with Ace because to me, it feels like really good song structure, which is something I'm not used to from lead guitar players that I've worked with. So I'm like, whoa, pop hooks from a lead guitarist? What?
I thought in general he respected the songs pretty well and was thinking of the songs as a whole instead of just ripping and soloing all over the place or thinking about how he can get the guitar in there again. Let's add a fifth or sixth track of guitar. It wasn't that. So I give him credit because I feel like that's better than a lot of guitar players, and just not being able to resist the urge to do that. So I give him props for that at least.
So this is another song I put in the A+ material of the album. What I like about this one a lot is that it's really heavy and rocks and has energy, but also has a really good groove to it too, where you can just really get locked in. It's not necessarily super fast, but it still feels high energy. It's a really cool song. This one's about cocaine, Snowblind.
What? I'm so confused and surprised.
And when I listen to this song, I often want to listen to the Styx song, Snowblind also. Those are my two favorite songs about cocaine called Snowblind. Black Sabbath's is third place for me. But, it's a cool song. I think this is one of the better ones on the album. I give the song an A+. This is one of the ones I liked a lot as a teenager, and as we were talking about some of the other episodes, some of the stuff I listened to back then doesn't hold up as well. This one still holds up. Still a great song.
Other Snowblinds include Steppenwolf, Tori Amos, Rob Thomas, The 77s, Judy Hensk, Nashville Pussy, Susumu Hirasawa, and AU5.
There you go.
Oh, and Sunburst and Snowblind, the EP by the Cocteau Twins.
So moving on from Snowblind, next up on the list,
We should do an episode ranking versions of the song Snowblind.
all the we might need to get I can already think of the guests I want to book for that episode, but I don't know if I want to call them out on the podcast.
Are you saying you have a friend who does a lot of cocaine?
I'm saying I have a few friends that do a lot of cocaine.
Oh, I thought you knew some professional snow shovelers.
I mean, he's from Cleveland. He probably does.
I'm from Ohio though. Like we're expecting to get some more snow, and it's mid-April.
Oh, that's terrible. I don't miss
70
that.
right now, but things do change.
Is it original recipe, Greg?
Anyway, moving on. And no, that wasn't actually who I thought of. I was thinking purely like a lot of my musician friends. Dude, I've been doing hair metal for the last decade. You don't think I know some people who do cocaine? All right, next up on the list, I'm in Need of Love. So this one I put as the last place song, and Devo, you put this as your number one.
Yeah.
So we've got some discrepancy here. Tell us about this song and why you liked it so much.
You know, it just felt good to my eardrums. Better than the other songs. I just enjoyed it. It was, like I said, I like the heavy hitting ones. You know, it was faster. It like had what I thought was like a decent hook, and that's really all you need. And it didn't have any like recording issues like I thought were on Wiped Out. I mean, that's all I have to say about it. I just enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah,
I'm just
this one
considering the idea that every one of these songs might have been recorded while under the influence of whatever substance that they sing about after Wiped Out. So like Wiped Out, they recorded drunk. Snowblind, they probably recorded while high on coke. In Need of Love, they recorded, I don't know, just like
horny.
he stayed away from the groupies for 2 days.
The Craigslist personal section.
In 1978.
Yep.
There was just
I'm
a guy.
sure there was a method for it.
There was a guy named Craig who just walked around with a list of phone numbers, like, "Hey, this chick's pretty hot. You should call her."
Just back in the day when they passed the little note cards next to each other, and it said, "Do you like me? Check yes or no."
AKA Steve's business cards.
That is my business card.
That's on your business card?
Yep.
Ooh.
People get confused. They try to like hand it back to me.
That's because they don't have a pen to put no.
It's true. So my take on much of this album, starting with this song, is as we start to get into the upper half of this album, is while I was listening to it, I felt like the best songs on this album were almost as good as some of Orbs' worst songs. So that for people who aren't familiar, I think I've played Greg some of them, but that's
they're all right.
It's the supergroup composed of the keyboardist from Abigail Williams and Cradle of Filth, the vocalist from Fear Before the Mouth of Flames, and the guitarist from, I forget which death metal band. I want to say Between the Buried and Me, but I might be wrong. But there's a couple songs which are clearly guitarist songs that they've done, and I got a similar vibe from those ones. A lot of this album had a similar vibe, including, this song, that it was kind of a boring song, but it had some good guitar work.
This one definitely felt the most like a guitarist song, like the delay and stuff on the guitars. I don't think it's a bad song, and the weird thing with this is I look at it and I see it's my last place song, but I don't think it deserves to be last place because I still like it. But I also know that I like everything else on this album more. It's still a good song. Once again, I think this is one of the more mellow ones on the album. I think my main reason for ranking it as low is that the hooks weren't as memorable for me. Where this was one of the ones where I hadn't really listened to it much since high school, and I didn't remember exactly what it was until I put it on. And then it all came back to me, and I remember it very clearly now, and it's obviously a catchy song, but this is one of the ones that didn't really stick in my mind, not listening to it for a decade, versus the other ones, not listening to them for a decade, I still remembered.
I wonder where your last songs rank against my top songs. If your least favorites are still enjoyed by you more than my top favorites, since you ranked at number 9 and I had it number 1. I'm guessing your bottom songs you still enjoy them more than I enjoyed anything on this album.
I would say maybe it's probably pretty close, I would say.
This is one of the swingier lists that we've had in a while. Like, there's wide disagreement between the various members of the panel on some of these songs.
I think we're definitely listening for different things.
Which, I think that's why it's fun to get the different perspectives of, people with varying degrees of experience with the album and appreciation for this kind of music.
I feel out of the three of us, I'm listening more for instrumentation and recording, and that might have to do with something where I just came out of the studio, and we're still reviewing our next EP and listening for things that need to be changed or whatever, and I'm listening intensely, and it's hard to step out of that. So, I mean, maybe some of it has to do with like what's going on in my life too, that I'm listening for more how the recordings, like the quality of that, and like do all the instruments sync up, which they don't in Wiped Out. It's just like a blur. But I know you guys are listening more to actually like the lyrics and things like that, which I definitely do. I'm just not in the mindset for that right now.
See, I'm writing PHP while I listen to these things, so I'm not even entirely sure what I'm listening to. Just sort of, if anything, either becomes a pleasant blur in the background, or like, oh, I wasn't paying attention for the last 4 minutes. That was a pretty decent song. Or if something sticks out as really interesting.
I tend to mainly look at them as how do I view the songwriting, the hooks, the arrangement of the hooks, and how are the instruments playing to the strengths of those hooks, is generally how I view pretty much every single episode that we do. So I'm basically evaluating how good I think the hooks are, and how good the organization of the hooks are is my main thing. But also I consider every instrument to potentially be doing a hook on its own.
Except for bass.
Well, sometimes.
In this album.
Yeah, no, bass is not really a hook on this album.
He definitely recorded the bass lines like a lead guitarist.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really strange actually. They had, I want to say 6 or 7 of the songs was obviously a lead guitarist like, okay, I'm going to pick out these root notes, get this done in one take, and if it doesn't sound amazing,
we'll just turn it down.
Doesn't deserve any more time than that. So it is what it is. And then there were, I want to say 2 or 3 songs where they're almost trying too hard, where I'd hear like a really weird, it wouldn't even be a fill, it's just like someone threw a note in there that seems out of place, or like a chord or something. I'm trying to think of the song.
Might be Speeding Back to My Baby.
No, it's not that one. I'm gonna have to revisit that. But they were just like trying too hard almost, and it's probably they got through almost all the song, and they're like, "Do we even want? Should we even bother tracking bass? How these other ones are going?" And they're like, "Yeah, I can think of a note or two to add in there," and it's just awkward.
It's a fair evaluation. I'm sure the vibe I generally got from this album, it was essentially, for most of it, just Ace, the drummer, and the producer / engineer. So basically just the 3 of them. And then he brought in some extra people on a couple tracks, but mostly it was just those 3 in the studio. So that was probably the least of his concerns was the bass, because it's his first time having more than one lead vocal on an album. So he's probably more focused on, do the guitars sound good and do my vocals sound good, than, oh, are people going to really pay attention to my bass playing?
They're not. I can answer that for him as a bass player.
So next up on this very swingy list, we have Fractured Mirror, Steve's favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
Steve, tell us about Fractured Mirror.
Well, I feel like, especially by the time we got to the end of this, and it was the closer on the album, I realized that this was the one that most played into Ace's strengths, in that it's not relying on him to hold things together vocally, because, at this point, it's clear he's not, he can't really do that for an album worth of material. So it's just like a weird instrumental where he, got to experiment with a lot of strange sounds and guitar effects and other stuff like that. I like weird. This reminded me pleasantly of Orbs.
My thing with this is that it starts off kind of interesting, but it doesn't go anywhere interesting. I think this is one of the more overrated songs in the catalog by fans. Like, I've heard so many lead guitar players, pro-level guys who make way more money off this than any of us do, who say, man, Fractured Mirror, that was like one of my inspirations as a guitar player. And I don't get it. It's all right, but there's not really a very strong melody throughout. It's not very hooky. It's just kind of the same thing over and over again. There's the one part at the beginning, and then there's the one change. But otherwise, it's just the same thing, and I like it, but I don't really get it.
I agree with you, Greg. I put this song in the middle, and I was really excited to hear something different. I didn't care that the vocals weren't there, and was just really excited to hear something different. However, by the end of the song, I'm like, okay, that was pretty repetitive. And also, too, thinking about it, I think I have it as number 6, which is, I guess, middle or a little lower. And that's just because it didn't fit in with the rest of this album at all. I almost want to say that I agree with you that there's 2 different sections of this album, but then maybe there's a third with just Fractured Mirror. And it's just doing its own thing. It's all right on its own, but in the context of this album, really has no place here.
What I think it is, I think fans like the idea of Fractured Mirror more than what it actually is. Because if you think about it, a bunch of kids growing up in the 70s, Ace Frehley is one of the biggest guitar players on the planet. He's their guitar hero. And they hear an instrumental, like, whoa, Ace is playing 12-string and there's all these weird guitar sounds. And so they're just impressed with that because it's their guitar hero doing a guitar track. But the guitar track itself, it doesn't have enough dynamics to keep it interesting. The main hook is good. And the drum beat is cool, and it sounds like it's building up to something, but it never really gets there.
I'm sure everyone who bought this album, especially when it came out, most of them were guitar players. And they're listening for guitar. So I understand why fans are like, hell yeah, Fractured Mirror, it's my jam. But that's because they're impressed by the guitar playing.
Yeah, and the rest of us bassists are like, hey, where are the hooks? This is the one that sounds the most like a Smashing Pumpkins song off Gish.
You're gonna talk about that in all 4 of these episodes, aren't you, Greg?
Probably.
You're 3 for 3 so far.
I mean, it's a good idea that doesn't go anywhere, like every song on that album. I liked Siamese Dream a lot, so I'll make up for it on that episode. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Fractured Mirror. Anyone else have anything to say? Nope.
Nope.
All right. Moving on. Next up on the list. This is a song that my good friend Corey Linden and I would jam on in the basement quite a bit in my earliest rocking days. I know that Devo and Steve both know Corey, co-wrote the Lipstick song Addict. So, but this is a song we used to play a lot, so I've got a lot of nostalgia for it for that reason. What's on Your Mind? Coming in at number 3.
All right, Casey Kasem.
So, I think this one is just good, solid pop rock tune, good hooks, interesting guitar playing by Ace during the verses and the choruses. Like he makes the guitar parts very interesting while he's singing. Like he's not half-assing either, which is nice. He's giving you a good melody, good hooks, but not neglecting the guitar playing during it. Like neither is neglected. This is just a very strong pop tune. I like it a lot.
Let's see. I had it exactly in the middle, number 5. Completely average song. Average in every way. That's why it's in the middle.
I felt like of the Kiss soundalikes on this album, this was the one with the best melody. So I put this one mid top. Like it didn't have any really interesting guitar stuff to make it stand out like some of the other ones. But it was an okay melody that didn't seem to suffer too much from his lack of ability to hit the notes.
I mean, with this one, I've noticed a lot of Kiss fans. This is one of the favorite deep cuts off this album. Never been played live by Kiss. I don't think Ace has ever played it live. But I've seen a bunch of different Kiss tribute bands play this song live. Everyone seems to like this song a lot, and it's one of the more Beatlesy songs on this album.
Take a shot.
Yep, oh, there you go.
What is this?
If Greg mentions Thin Lizzy or the Beatles, you take a shot.
Yeah.
I do, or he does?
We all should.
And the listeners are definitely sick of... I think on these episodes I talk more about the Beatles and Thin Lizzy than I do about Kiss.
Yeah.
Like, Kiss is alright, but guys, have you listened to Thin Lizzy? They're really good.
Have you heard of this band called the Beatles? They're English, so they're a little obscure.
So in Greg's defense, though, he's just not your average Beatles fan. We're going to do a flashback to high school really quick.
Yeah, do it.
Did he have one of those bowl cuts?
Where Greg he had long hair. He's growing it out. And he was known as the guy with long hair. And then all of a sudden one day, we're like, Greg, what happened to your head? And he just said, I really, really like and respect the Beatles. And we go, so what? And he says, well, I can't do that without completely mimicking them in every way.
What?
And he had the bowl cut.
Called it!
But since his hair is really thick, his head looked like a mushroom. It's just like brown, thick hair that's like in a bowl, but kind of like went out to the sides a little bit. Total like mushroom silhouette.
It was like Kid Gohan in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh yeah, but I don't know though. Yamcha had the same haircut before him.
Was your hair wavy back then, Greg?
It was too short to be wavy.
I had to straighten it every day before school. I got up at like 5 or 6 in the morning to straighten my hair so I could do the mop top thing.
Oh,
We
man.
started school early, and he dressed the way too.
I wore the suits.
Yeah, he totally redid his whole wardrobe where he had these suits that were too tight that maybe gave him that English feel, but were just kind of just too tight. And did you have bow ties, I think?
No, I didn't wear them with bow ties. I wore them with skinny ties. And in fairness, I was in pretty good shape back then, so it wasn't like bad how tight they were.
Everything's all relative. Now what? You're 28, right?
Right.
I think you were like maybe 15, 16 at the time.
I was like 17 or 18. I was weighing like 135.
Oh man. Everything is becoming a blur to me, but some Greg Troyan antics definitely stick out. That and the Meatloaf encores. You could always count on Greg to do karaoke of "Bad Outta Hell" at a school function.
Well, the thing is, people just ask me to sing Bat Out of Hell. That wouldn't just be at school functions. I would just be walking down the street, and people were like, Greg, sing Bat Out of Hell. I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
It's like the movie Yes Man. He can't say no.
I can't say no to singing Bat Out of Hell.
Sing a 10-minute song for us, Greg.
And I would.
Acapella.
And he did with extreme passion.
But, in fairness, I didn't do it just because I liked and respected the Beatles. I was just in a Beatles phase. I'm like, you know what? I'm really feeling the Beatles thing right now. So, but yeah, I like the Beatles. They're cool, I guess. So I like the song. It kind of sounds like the Beatles. All right, next up on the list, New York Groove. This is the big hit off the album, the only hit single off the solo albums. Now, actually, one of Kiss's biggest hits is technically this song.
Huh.
Kiss didn't have too many radio hits. They were more of an album-selling band. Album-oriented rock, if you will.
I will not, because that's not actually what they do. Just because their music sold as albums doesn't mean that's what they were doing.
Well, the way I always heard of album-oriented rock as described is where the difference in quality between the singles and the non-singles is mostly negligible. Like 70s and 80s bands were more about putting a consistent album rather than just one good song and a bunch of filler like the pop acts of the day. So that's where the term originated from, was album-oriented rock, because DJs would look at an album and say, oh, the single from this album is Finding My Way. I'm going to play this album cut called Working Man instead.
What's a DJ?
It's a person who presses the space bar on their Mac.
Oh. Oh, he turns on the playlist.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
So, New York Groove, I ranked this as the best song on the album.
I'm noticing a theme, Greg, of you like songs that Kiss played that other people wrote better than Kiss songs pretty consistently.
In this case, I mean, okay, with the Gene Simmons album, it was against When You Wish Upon a Star.
I feel like this is like the third time, though, that you've said, yes, my favorite song on this Kiss project is the cover.
This is only the second time I've done that, actually.
What about And Then He Kissed Me?
That was like middle of that album.
Really? I thought that one ranked a lot higher.
No, it was middle for me.
Huh.
So, and this one I also had the most nostalgia for because this was the first Ace song that I heard. It was the first song off the album I heard because this was on a Greatest Hits compilation. And so, hearing this song, I'm like, oh, this song has a fun little groove to it. It's not as heavy. It's more danceable. It has the stomping thing going on. Ace's subdued vocal actually really works with this, like that sort of quiet vocal. It just has groove and swagger and guitar playing that isn't very typical of a Kiss song, but it's very 70s. This just has a very 70s feel to it, and I like it quite a bit.
I'm not sure they used the hashtag swag when this came out, Greg.
That's true.
It's fair.
I put this one second from the top.
But I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Yeah, I ranked this one second. I liked it. I Will Cop To. I like songs that other people wrote better than Kiss songs in general. That's why I put it so high.
I mean, it's a 70s British glam rock song covered by Ace Frehley. Steve obviously knows my opinion on 70s glam rock, and I know Devo does too. That's, kind of my wheelhouse.
The audience does not get to know. Oh, wait, you already said it.
Right. But I think it's a very well done cover, and probably it's right up there with one other cover in the Kiss catalog. This is potentially the best cover in the Kiss catalog, with really only God Gave Rock and Roll to You as the only competition for the best cover in the catalog. I think it's a great sounding song. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Devo, you ranked it the lowest. Say something bad about it.
Oh, well, I'm just not a glam rock guy. There's a reason why you're glam rock Greg. And there's a reason why I'm not glam rock Devo.
Partially because the alliteration
multiple
really
reasons. Yeah. That's definitely tough with the name. However, it's just not my thing.
You could be like douche rock Devo, but that's kind of mean.
Right.
That seems like an album. or a
Dad Rock
genre
Devo?
that- Oh, Dad Rock.
Dad Rock Devo. There you go.
I tried to give up all my Dad Rock when I moved out from my parents' place. It was a good time to leave the Dad Rock behind.
You could be
Yeah.
doom metal Devo.
I mean, I'm a stepdad, so I mainly do stepdad rock now. So it's rock that is kind of like dad rock, but not really the same thing, and you'll never really accept it.
As a dad, it's not your responsibility to play Dad Rock. It is your responsibility to say dad jokes.
Oh, I do those all the time. He hates it.
Well, then, you're a good father.
He'll be like, "I'm
The
hungry."
only thing you can measure parenthood off of.
He's done the "I'm hungry," and I said, "Hi, hungry. I'm Greg." I've done
Oh.
that.
He wasn't quick enough on the draw to interrupt you with, "You're not my real dad!"
He wasn't expecting it. He wasn't expecting that level of dadism.
He's like, oh, he's reverting into his dad duties faster than expected.
Now I'm trying to figure out the combination of Dadaism and dadism.
Right? That's where my mind went as soon as I said it.
I want to hear some Dadaist dad jokes.
Well, that's you can create a whole new podcast for that one.
There we go. Dadaist dad jokes. That's going to be the best podcast ever.
It's a Twitter account. Dada jokes.
All right, just read the first tweet. No context.
What did the mountain climber name his son? Cliff. He was plagued by oppressions, typesetting and railroad catastrophes, small beignets. Daily reflection. You can succeed at not shooting Archduke Ferdinand every day of your life, but mess up just once and all hell breaks loose. Sadly, he has not posted since 2016.
Ooh,
A
bad times.
a single tear, just like Gene Simmons at the end of that music video from The Elder. Did that for you, Kiss fans that are still listening to us talk about dad jokes. All right.
My milk carton is missing, but I don't know how to alert the public to this fact.
All right, let's go through the ranking as we get to the number one song. Coming in as the 9th best, Wiped Out. Followed by Ozone. Followed by Rip It Out. Then Snowblind. Followed by I'm in Need of Love. Then Fractured Mirror. Then What's on Your Mind. Followed by New York Groove. But the best song on the Ace Frehley 78 solo, according to this panel of bassists, is Speedin' Back to My Baby.
So I would like to point out that this one was a unanimous vote. All three of us agreed this was the third best song.
But because of math, it's actually the best song.
Bassists, we're the worst.
But, I think it's the one that we unanimously all like consistently. Like, there are other songs where you will rank it as the best song and someone will rank it as the worst. And then New York Groove, Steve and I ranked that towards the top, but you ranked it towards the bottom. This one we all ranked towards the top. So there's something to be said about widespread appeal of a song.
There's something to be said about a song being, maybe not excellent, but pretty good to most people.
Nah, this is an A+ song. This song kicks ass. You see, Steve, you've never driven to this song.
It's true, I haven't.
Driving to Speedin' Back to My Baby is kick-ass.
I did it this morning.
Right, and wasn't it awesome?
I was pumped.
You're just like, shoot, I want to go over the speed limit, but I don't want a ticket. All right, I'm going to go 5 under.
5 under.
This album is making me extra cautious because I'm wanting to do reckless things and I'm overcompensating.
That is very dad rock of you.
Very.
So the baby in this case is literally a baby.
Right. Speedin' Back to My Baby, parentheses on board.
Speeding back to my supportive family.
This one I'm surprised Steve liked as much as he did because you hate the blues.
I didn't particularly notice any blues influence on this one. Maybe because I just listened to the Peter Criss album, and like he wore his blues influences all over his face like cat makeup. Whereas this one, it was a lot more subdued, so I didn't really notice it.
Yeah, this one definitely has a lot of blues influence, but man, this one just kicks so much ass, and like the instrumentation during the solo section is so good, just the backwards stuff.
Did he actually record that backwards?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
And I know you said to move it up 3 spots if he did record it backwards.
Which I noticed you didn't.
I didn't, but hey, it still won.
That's fair.
So there we go. It still moved up 3 slots.
It's a solid song. I liked it. The backwards guitar playing was sweet. And really, this is the only song on this album that's danceable. I imagine myself at like a wedding reception, and I really want to dance, but because the song comes on and it's got a good beat, and it is a little bluesy, and then only person.
And then my dad sneaks in some whiskey, and you're like, "Yeah, now I can dance to it."
It's like it's like, oh man, like I have to dance like by my great aunt, and we're gonna just wiggle like 5 feet away from each other, and I wish you'd look at me a little less. But it's like it's just like solid. You want to at least like move your body at least a little bit. And I feel like that's the only song on this album that does that. So that's probably why, as bass players, we all like gravitated towards that. Most bass players, like the best you can do is someone's going to dance to the bass line you're playing,
right?
And because you can't ask them to respect you, but you can hope that they're going to tap their foot or they're going to dance a little bit or something. So that's probably why we all liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, once again, this is another, I put this in the same realm as Rip It Out, where I just view it as just a kick-ass, balls-to-the-wall rocker, and it's actually lyrically one of the more respectful songs about women, where it's like, I got in an argument with my girl, and on second thought, I should go back and apologize and try to mend things. That wasn't really cool of me to do. So,
Now I'm feeling bad for your dad because I've always tried to avoid taking shots with him. At your wedding, he was kind of like trying to trap people. And I was like, no, I'd like to secretly drink like on our own here. Over here, and you can do your secret drinking on this side of the parking lot.
I prefer to secret drink alone, thank you.
That was all kinds of ridiculous.
I did take a shot or two.
I know.
I told that man the key word is surreptitious, and he did not pay attention.
So, Steve, fun fact about this song. This song was covered by the Donnas.
Oh.
As was Strutter. So they covered a couple Kiss songs, and they did, I think, a really awesome version of this song as well. And it's actually pretty close as to which one I like better. It's a very, very solid cover. So, shout out to the Donnas for picking a really good deep cut.
Yeah. Swed do covers.
And, in fairness for Ace, New York Groove was a pretty obscure song when he picked it out. Hit overseas, but obscure in America. And it's like, I can make this work. And since it's one of the few actual hits from Kiss, like radio hits, hey, it worked out. So Ace's solo album sold the second best out of all the albums, but it did have the only hit.
Who was number one?
Gene, just based on the popularity of him in the 70s. Like, he looks cool. But Ace's was the best reviewed and the only one that actually had a charting hit single. So the order of sales is Gene, Ace, Paul, and Peter, Womp Womp, in last. But also, last place still sold 1 million copies. So...
Right.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, if like, oh, my album only sold 1 million, my debut solo album, you did okay. So that was our ranking. Were you guys surprised with it? Were you overall happy with the results? I mean, this was a very swingy panel.
It was. It was this. I think none of us predicted much of anything, other than I guess that nobody particularly cared for Wiped Out.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted. I did not expect Wiped Out or Ozone to place very high. So, I'm in Need of Love was the biggest surprise for me, how high that ranked. And Rip It Out. Rip It Out ranking very low was a huge shock to me. But Kiss fans, it's official. You know, I'm in Need of Love is better than Rip It Out. Like, this is the official ranking.
This is true.
So, if you like Rip It Out better than I'm in Need of Love, you're wrong.
Objectively wrong.
Objectively wrong. There's math involved.
We have a sample size of 3.
Right. Of 3 bassists.
And who knows more about music than bassists?
I mean, we know all about 4 strings, sometimes 5 if we want to get progressive.
I've been playing a 5 the last few years.
I would play a 5, but my fingers are short and stumpy, so I just play a 4 without the G string and a B string instead.
I would play a 5, but I only use 2 of the strings anyway.
Right? You need
That's all
a
you
washed-up
need.
bass.
Right.
I challenge you to go down to 1.
I mean, I could. I've actually purposefully done that with songs. Like, I'm going to play this on 1 string just because I can.
Bass strings are so expensive.
Right?
Right.
Save yourself a lot of money.
So, Devo, where can we find you and your awesome band?
Well, the easiest way is titansandtime.com. We're also on YouTube, Spotify, basically anywhere that you can find music, we're there. So just put in your search Titans and Time, and we should pop up as your #1 hit.
I mean, I'd hope so. Like,
Me
no,
too.
I don't want this Ninja Turtles game. Well, I do, but I don't want it right now.
Not to be mistaken with the Teen Titans or your football team,
Right.
but those should be 10, 12, 13 on your hit list in Google. So I'm confident we'll be at the top.
Good SEO. It was a much better decision to name your band Titans in Time than to name our band Lipstick. Because Googling Lipstick, you don't get us as the first result. Google Lipstick Band, you find us. But if you just Google Lipstick, you're not going to find us.
I just tried Titans and Tim, because it amuses me. And you guys are the first non-ad link, so
Yeah,
nice
you
work.
still showed up. Good job. Good SEO.
Yeah, that's definitely something that people have to think about nowadays is where are my Google placements going to be? And you don't want to spend all that advertisement money to get to the top.
Ooh, Ticketmaster links.
Yeah, and, you know, I remember in high school I thought all the emo band names were dumb. And in retrospect, I realized how brilliant they were because no one is ever going to look up that specific order of words unless they're actually looking for that band.
Right?
So
I know we're getting a little off topic here, but I think the best, like nowadays, if I were to start a band, a new band right now, I think I would just make up a word and like have my band be that made up word.
So here's
And-
the issue with that, though.
How do you spell
Steve's
it?
band has a somewhat made-up word, Regdar, and people can never spell it.
They can never
Ooh.
spell it or pronounce it. People are like, here's Ragnar, and the fighters be like, no, Ragnar is Dragon Age. Regdar is Dungeons and Dragons. Completely different fantasy game with dragons in the name. Thank you very much.
Nerd.
Nerd.
That reminds me of a show we played a really long time ago. It's definitely like a few years ago. And we were playing with this band called Pickaxe Preacher.
Nice.
And they're way heavier than us, but we still ended up on the same show as them. And their singer was hilarious because someone kept on asking him, "What's your band name?" And he'd just find different things that rhymed with his band that were incorrect. So they'd be like, "Is it Pickaxe It's like, no, it's thick ass teacher.
I respect that. The shtick with my solo band, the Gred Troyan Band, which hasn't played a show in a couple years now, but every show we change the band name. So we would say we're Gred Troyan and the TBA Holes.
That's my favorite.
We're Gred Troyan and the musicians who didn't hurt themselves while skateboarding, because our guitar player hurt himself while skateboarding, so we had to get a fill-in for that gig.
To get a fill-in for a fill-in gig.
Right. But yeah, we would just change the band name every show, and we just had like a list of different ridiculous, silly, dumb band names.
So were you playing mostly locally, or were you moving around?
Those were just local gigs. It was just to do do something different than Lipstick, where it's
I'm
not.
sure everyone knew you as just Greg's band.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. And to be fair, half of those shows were, opening for Lipstick because they were Greg's birthday show.
Right. Well, that band got booked a little bit outside of Lipstick, which was weird when that happened. But we're getting off topic. We are Lipstick. Find us at lipstickgeneration.com. Buy our music and buy Titans in Time music. Buy the new EP when it comes out. Is it an EP or an album that's coming out?
So it'll be an EP. We just finished tracking for it, but recording is not done. We're like listening to all the songs and still mixing them and seeing if we need to add or remove anything. It's a process, but it'll definitely come out later in 2018. So I'm excited for it. You should be too. It's definitely gonna be our best stuff yet. So
it sounds exactly like the Ace Frehley solo album. Buy it. Unless you don't like this album, then it doesn't sound anything like it. Either way, buy the new Titans in Time EP.
There you go. Buy Titans in Time. Buy Lipstick. Make mashups out of them.
Yes. And that's our show. Good night.